everyone. So glad to see you. Thank you for joining. Welcome to my podcast, Reclaiming My Power. I Choose Me. Yay! Today, we have a special guest. And she's awesome. She's beautiful. She's so talented and amazing in every possible way. Welcome to my podcast, Pratina.
Thank you.
Hi, Pratina.
Hi, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for agreeing to be here. I am honored to have you. I met Pratina, I want to say back in, when did we have, well, it was, I think back in May. We had one conversation in church, but we had the Change Her conference. And I don't know if you remember this. I was standing, we were outside. They had some vendors afterwards. This is how amazing you are, because you don't even remember this. There were some vendors afterwards, and I went to this table, and they were selling shea butter. And there was this lavender shea butter in a jar that I was going to get. And Pratina walked over and said, "I'll get that for you." Do you remember that?
I do remember now.
Yeah, yes. Remember now. And she got that for me. And I was so touched by the gesture. It was so genuine and clearly so authentic and so her, because she doesn't even remember that. It was just something that came so natural. And from there, every time I saw you, I made it a point, hey, and you introduced yourself formally. And we have had some amazing conversations. And just in the short time that I've met you and spoken to you, you've been such a blessing, so inspirational. And when I think about, my vision, my mission, reclaiming my power, I choose me. Like if I could put a face on it, you would be the face. You would be the face. You have some amazing stories and one of resilience and just strength and so many different things. So I had in mind one way I was going to start this episode today. And yesterday I was triggered. I don't know if you got to see the Kirk Franklin.
I watched it last night, Father's Day. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Let me tell you something. Well, Kirk Franklin, so my producer's in the background and she's asking who Kirk Franklin is. Blasphemy.
Sorry, I'm uncultured.
Blasphemy. Kirk Franklin is one of the best gospel, I can't even say gospel singer because he doesn't sing.
Artist.
He's a gospel artist who is absolutely amazing and so talented. And he's been out since the 90s.
Yeah.
I've been following Kurt and been a fan of him since he first came out. All the hairstyles he went through and all his transformations. He has an amazing story to tell. He was adopted and I won't get into it, but yesterday I think a few days ago, he released I guess it was a documentary, and he was talking, it was titled Father's Day. And he's 53 years old and just found his father. Yeah. But it goes deeper than that. And it was so heart-wrenching, touching, like, we went through all of the emotions, I think, watching it. I think there was even maybe a funny part with his aunt, But when I say you literally go through every emotion. And I feel so, like I literally hurt for him. I have so much pain for him. And I've just been praying and praying and praying. But in the midst of his story, it was triggering for me. It was triggering for me when you talk about rejection, because there's a part in there. And, unfortunately, it wasn't my story. It was his story, his journey, but it was a trigger. And I was in this kitchen and I was cleaning And when I tell you, I lost it. Thank God I was here by myself, because my husband would have thought I was crazy. I cried so hard. Like I felt it, and it hurt. I hurt for him, and it just triggered some things for me, that even though it is behind me from a standpoint of living in it daily and being down and in the bed and broken and all that. No, it's behind me. But there's still triggers that happen. And I had my husband come home, and when he came home, I had him watch it. Same thing. So it all stems from trauma. So how did it impact you in any way?
So it did, interestingly enough. I watched it right before I went to bed, which probably was not a good thing.
No.
But the thing that stood out for me was the mom seeing the evidence and her still not accepting what was to be true. So I felt like that triggered me and him, because it's like, hey, we finally have the truth now, and you don't want to receive it. And a lot of times, I say it like this: trauma is a trumpet.
Yes.
It's an instrument. So what it does is it plays these songs to you. It says things to you in your head that you weren't good enough. They lied to you because you weren't smart enough, or they didn't tell you the truth because they were protecting you. So when it makes that sound, it does certain things to you to where you feel like, is my whole life a lie? Wow. So I think that was the thing that stuck out for me, because again, I'm the same age. I'm 53 years old too. And I had a little similar.
I was just going to say that.
Situation. So long story short, I seen my dad one time. I was 3 years old, and then I never saw him again. So throughout my adult life, I was looking for him. I mean, I tried to go on talk shows. I was Googling his name. I was doing all these things. And I think I was about 40 something years old. And I just was like in prayer asking God to help me. And then he told me, he said, Google his name. And I Googled my dad's name, and I found out where he was buried. By this time, my dad had passed away.
Oh my goodness.
So I didn't have that connection. So I did found out some information about one of his relatives, and they had a different kind of last name. So I found everybody on Facebook with that last name. And I was like, I know this sounds weird, but I'm looking for some family members. Do you know my dad? Fast forward, 3 years pass. I don't hear nothing. I just going about my business. And I get a message. And this lady says, oh, I just checked my Facebook Messenger. Yes, that is your dad. This is your dad's uncle. You have a brother and you have 2 sisters. So I found out, through Facebook, that I have 2 twin sisters, a younger sister, and a younger brother.
Wow.
So I got to kind of find out things about my dad through them, because again, I never had a relationship with them. So I get my sense of style from my dad.
Oh my goodness.
I get my creativity from my dad. I write poetry. My brother writes raps.
Wow.
I do stand up. My other sister does stand up. So it's just like, you can be in a family and you don't understand how strong your genetic fabric is. But then the negative side is when you have that trauma of unresolved issues,
yes,
you pass that on to your family too.
Oh my goodness. Wow. And it's so amazing that you said that you say that, because so yesterday that was a trigger. And then today, being transparent, I am picking up our dinner. And I mentioned this to you, a vegan restaurant. I was, I guess I can say we were supposed to be there for whatever reason. Pratina is the one that introduced us to it. And I was actually going to ask you, I'm talking to my producer, Yvonne, since you were coming kind of close to that area, to if you wouldn't mind picking it up, but nothing worked out schedule-wise. But I say all that to say we were supposed to be there, and we had an encounter with the owner today that was like no other. And we didn't go there. I mean, she wears many hats. She was cooking. She's a chef, and she does so many other things. And she happened to come out because it was someone's birthday, and my husband mentioned something to her. And from there, it turned into a testimony session, a worship session, a an amazing encounter that I've never experienced before. So on this, from that conversation, from her testimony, we were talking about trauma, childhood trauma, and how when you don't deal with your trauma, you can pass it on to your kids or you can pass it on to your family. And she broke down and she was like, my kids are going through certain things, and it was a direct result of what I went through or what she went through. And we don't intentionally do it. We don't intentionally do it. I went so out of my way trying to protect my girls from certain things, but then I didn't realize that the impact of certain things that I went through did affect them by way of my anxiety attacks, by way of my ups and downs and everything else. So Kai, Imani, Lena, I'm sorry. Love you guys. Anyway, but so trauma, you just mentioned how it can just transfer onto your family, but tell us about your story. Tell us about and I know you shared some of it with as far as your father and are you in contact with your siblings now?
Yes.
So
I actually got to meet them shortly thereafter. I went to Missouri and met them all and their family members. So we keep in touch.
That's so wonderful. Yeah, I love that, and I love that. I hate that you did not get to meet your or have a conversation with your father, but at least you have the beautiful gifts of your siblings outside of that. I don't even know where we can start because you have so many amazing testimonies yourself. Anything that you would like to share or
So interestingly enough, my mom and some other family members lived near some people that they knew. And for some reason, I didn't live with my aunt. I wound up living with these strangers. So at 8 years old, I became the product of the foster care system and I began to live with them. So long story short, and without being too graphic, there were multiple molestations that happened. So at 8 years old, I pretty much had my identity taken away.
Jesus.
I didn't know who I was because one, my parents weren't around. Now I'm in this family that I don't know, and then now you're taking something else from me. So I'm just this little kid that's going to school every day, cracking jokes, trying not to show people my pain. So for me, telling jokes and being the class clown, that was the kind of like to divert away from the pain that I was feeling. So there was physical abuse, there was sexual abuse. It was pretty hard to the point where I remember, I think at 9, I tried to kill myself.
Jesus.
Yeah. So I tried to slit my wrist one time. I tried to drown myself in the bathtub. And the third time, I tried to run into traffic. So at 9 years old, you're just thinking, you're playing with a Barbie doll, easy bake oven, you have a fake vacuum cleaner or something. And I was literally going to sleep at night trying to figure out how not to wake up.
Oh my goodness.
So not dealing with your trauma, and I say this, if you can't conquer what you don't confront. And a lot of times we'll try to push things down, or we'll try to say, oh, I'm older, that doesn't affect me. But it did affect me because I became a teenage mom. I was pregnant at 16 years old. Now, had I not been touched in those ways, because now you've awakened this inside of me. So
of course, yeah.
I guess this is what's supposed to happen. So now I'm like, promiscuous. I'm doing all these things because now I get to choose my partners now.
Yes.
It's not somebody, jumping on me, but even in that, it's like I'm going from this person to that person. So I had boyfriends that were street pharmacists, aka drug dealers. I had a boyfriend that worked on Wall Street. I had a boyfriend who was light skinned. I had a boyfriend who was dark skinned. I had a boyfriend that was Puerto Rican. It was kind of like I was just out here trying to figure out who could I be valuable to. So by the time I was 16 years old, I had this daughter, and I was living in a 1-bedroom with my mom and my grandmother and my sister.
Oh my goodness.
And 600 square feet. And I was like, this ain't gonna work. So I remember getting a Greyhound ticket one summer, and I packed up what I could pack up in a bag, and me and my daughter got on the Greyhound, went 3,000 miles, and went to San Diego. I had an aunt there, and I remember my cousin, he gave up his bottom bunk.
Oh.
I'm gonna cry. He gave up his bottom bunk to sleep on the floor. So me and my daughter could sleep in his bed. And just for him to give up his space, it made me feel valued at that time. So that kind of started the healing process because I was away from the people. I was away from the familiar environment. People didn't know my name. So when I went to San Diego, I could be anybody. I was from New York City.
Yes.
People was like, oh, are you a rapper? Yeah, I'm a rapper. I was lying.
Right.
I was lying. But they didn't know that. You know, but with that being said, it's like, thank you. With that being said, it was an escape for me because I didn't have to deal with somebody touching me. You know, so although I wasn't still being touched, I was still being traumatized because I didn't understand that having a baby at 16 years old and then leaving and not being with that person. So what did I do? I just perpetuated the behavior. So then I just looked for somebody else when I was in California. And then, like the Bible tells us that a fool returns to his folly like the dog to his vomit, right? So I only knew to go back to what I knew to go back to. Okay, I get attention when I sleep with people. So now, a couple of years pass, I get pregnant. I think I was about 19 or 20. I got pregnant, had a miscarriage. How do you deal with that? And in a lot of cultures and families, people don't talk about that. They don't talk about abortions. They don't talk about, you know, trauma. They don't talk about a lot of things. So now you have this young girl with this baby that she has to take care of, and she don't know what she's doing. She's just like, well, you feed yourself, feed the baby. You wash your hair, you wash the baby's hair. You don't know. So it was traumatizing in that because now I'm in a whole nother city. I don't know these people. What are they going to think about me? So now I have to make up a person. Because I'm trying to run from the person that was in Brooklyn. Now I'm in San Diego and I'm like, okay, this is like polar opposite. I go from, you know, having my hair in corn braids and wearing a Kango to a Jerry curl. It looked so weird on me. Yeah. Like literally, it looked really weird on me. And I was like, and I go back and I look at those pictures and I'm like, because that wasn't you. That wasn't you. That was trauma saying, oh, just change your hair and you can change what hurt you, or change your, you know, change your clothes and you can change who touched you. And I just think that it's so very important to talk to someone that you trust. Yes. Because I believe a lot of people have committed suicide. I believe a lot of people are still dealing with their trauma. And then they're forcing their trauma on other people. Yes. So not addressing it, it doesn't just affect you. It affects the people you work with. Because you go to work and you snap off at people. They don't even know why you're snapping off at them. You know, and technically you don't either. You don't. You don't. Because you just maybe chop it up to, oh, I'm having a bad day. Yeah. And it wasn't until God started to talk to me about it, and because I would have recurring dreams of like my attackers. So I could live, I think I was living in San Diego, but the dreams were still stationed in New York City. Oh, wow. So even though I had traveled, I didn't know that I had taken trauma as my traveling companion. So now I'm sitting here and I'm just thinking, well, how do I get out of this? And how do I raise this child? And how do I not push all of what I'm not dealing with on her? And I think that was probably the hardest part of parenting, was trying not to parent her out of my hurt. Yes.
Oh my goodness. It's so hard because you think you're doing the right thing, and then some things come out. I mean, things happen. It's what you're saying resonates with me so much, and I've shared some of my story, but it's not intentional. It just happens, and it's so unfortunate. And if I could go back and change some things, oh my goodness, that would be one of the things, is how the impact, even in the trying to protect, the impact that it had on my girls. So what was your defining moment? What was, because you mentioned not knowing who you were and basically not dealing with the trauma. It followed you to San Diego. So what was the change? What was the turning point for you?
Well, interestingly enough, like I said, I was about 19 or 20 years old. I didn't have a defining moment till 3 years ago. Wow. So it took me 3 decades. 3 decades. Like a whole generation was born. Like my kids had kids. And I don't think I don't think I was running from it. I just didn't know what I needed to fix.
Yes.
So a lot of times people think, well, if I lose weight, it'll go away. If I get my hair done like this person, or if I don't know. I don't even know what people think. But for me, it was that if I'm skinny, then people like me, and then so it wasn't until I got married and then I started going through some challenges in my marriage. That's when the switch was flipped to tell me you haven't dealt with your trauma.
Wow.
Because when I got married, it was even hard for me to be intimate with my husband because it made me think about somebody else being on top of me. So then he would get upset because he thought I was withholding myself from him.
Yeah.
So I had to sit down and I had to tell him. I think we had went out. He had taken me to Disneyland one summer, and he was like, "Oh, I want you to wear this dress." And when I saw the dress, it made me cringe. And he was like, "Oh, I think it accentuates your curves and this and that and the other." But what it did for me, it triggered when people used to look at me when I was a little kid. Wow. So here I am, this 40-year-old person at Disney World, first time going to Disney World, don't want to be there, trying to be nice to my husband about putting on this dress and just feeling dirty on the inside. So trauma doesn't just travel with you. It sticks to you.
It sticks to you.
It sticks to you. So it's like Gorilla Glue. If I could explain it in any other kind of way. So once I got married and I started trying to trek through things, I didn't understand why if my husband didn't say I was beautiful, I would start crying.
Wow. It was something you needed?
It was something I needed, and other people would say it to me. But it didn't mean what I needed it to mean coming from my husband. But then I would see my husband call some little girl beautiful, or he would say somebody else, and it triggered me then, because I remember approaching him and I said, "How is it that she's beautiful and I'm beautiful?"
And did you have this conversation with him?
I did, and he was like, well, "She's a little girl," and I was like, "But I'm a little girl." And telling your wife that she's beautiful and telling somebody you don't know that they're beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like borderline disrespectful. Like, I didn't know how to, because I didn't have language for it. So the only way I could tell him, it hurts me when you tell other people that they're beautiful.
Because the little girl in you wanted to hear it authentically, without any strings attached.
Yeah. So I believe my marriage helped me find out how selfish I was, because I had spent the majority of my life raising my kids. So I specifically said that I didn't want to have a man in my life because I had been molested and I had 3 daughters. And I was like, if something happens to one of my kids, they might as well just clear out the whole jail.
Blank.
Yeah, that's it. It's a wrap. So then I'm like, think logically, because if you go to jail, then who's gonna protect them?
Yeah. So, but it's so fun because you don't think that at the time. That was my thinking too. Like, I held on to my girls like so tight because I knew, God forbid, they went through a little bit of what I went through that I'm still dealing with. Oh yeah, I mean, like you said, clear. You talk about a weapon of mass destruction. Touch one of my girls. Like so I. Ooh, but God, that's all I can say is, but God, because saved in so many different ways, because I get that part of it. Sorry, I'm shaking right now because I just had that visual, and I know that pain, and I'm so thankful that my girls are older and thankfully never had to experience anything like that. But that was one of my fears. It's like you're dealing with your own thank you. You're dealing with your own trauma, but it's also so hard trying to protect, and it's like you project, and that limits them in so many different ways. But yeah, I also can relate to the little girl in you wanting to hear certain things, and that's not with any type of ulterior motive. Right. And so Wow. And so, and I keep saying wow. So you mentioned that you had your defining moment like 3 years ago. What was that like? I mean, I'm going to base it on your comfort level. So I know for me what reclaiming my power, I choose me means, and it is for me. Uh, I felt like for years I gave my molesters and violators and everyone that power. And mine too was in the last few years when I had my defining, well, I had several defining moments, but I finally got to that point like, wait a minute. I need to take that power back. They still have me, they still have the shackles. They still have me shackled, and I have all these different shackles, the shackles of shame and fear and all that. And so when I took that power back and chose me and started creating these boundaries and being mindful of my triggers and it put me on a whole different level. And I have specific, and I mentioned it in previous episodes, but specific defining moments. Like, was there one for you? Was there?
So even though I said a couple of years ago, when you said like there's levels and there's different defining moments with the molestation, I remember I was coming home from work one day, and then the Lord was like, "You're gonna call the guy." I was like, "Say what now?" Now I know you're talking to me because who else are you talking to, right? So I have this thought in my head because it was still bothering me.
And by guy, you mean
the guy who molested me.
My goodness.
One of the guys who molested me the most. So before I could get the thought out, the Lord was like, "You're gonna call. This is what's gonna happen. You're gonna get the information from this person, and then you're gonna call him." So I got off work, I laid down for a couple hours, I woke up and took a deep breath. I was like, okay. So I called this particular person, and then that particular person gave me that person's phone number, and then I called the guy. And before I called the guy was like, he's gonna deny it. So he's already preparing me. Like, he was like, "I don't want you to be shocked. He's gonna deny it, but you still have to say what I told you to say." So I have this conversation with the guy, and he's like, "Oh no, none of this stuff happened." Just like God said, he was going to deny it. So then I had to say to him, "Well, remember when you used to do XYZ? Or remember when you would call me from outside? Or remember when I have to wipe you off? And remember when it was my job to get out of the room without anybody seeing me? You got exhibit A through K. I can't make this up." So then he gets silent on the phone. And I told him, I said, "I forgave you. I hope you forgive yourself. And I pray that no one does to your daughters what you did to me." And I hung up the phone.
How did that feel?
Like an elephant had been knocked off my back.
Oh my God.
Because for 35 years, every decision I made or didn't make was attached to the fact that I felt like I was dirty. Because what he would do is he would take advantage of me, and then he would sit across the table from me
and
with the disdain, and I had to face him, and he would act like he never did anything.
Yep.
And I couldn't tell anybody because trauma will lie to you and tell you, if you tell, you're the person that's wrong.
Yeah.
So what I did was, unknowingly, I became an advocate for my abuser. I literally stood in the middle. I was so broken that I began to concern myself with his reputation more than my freedom.
Wow. I can't stop saying wow, I'm sorry. Hearing you say that, I think one of the things that, I have so much going on in my head, but one of the things I would love to be able to do is to talk to one of my violators. When you said sitting across from him, I got this image of me at the table. And I'm a little girl, and I'm sitting. I believe he's to my left. There's a dining room table, and then there's like the kitchen in the back. And my grandmother was in the back. It was in the kitchen, and I'm sitting there. I think I was sitting at the head, and he was sitting right next to me. And I was a little girl, and he was Yeah. And I'm just, and I'm feeling so anxious right now because I'm imagining, I'm remembering, even at that little girl, even though as a little girl, even though I couldn't identify it, I'm thinking, can she see this? She's gonna see, she's gonna stop it. She didn't see. I guess he was doing stuff when she wasn't looking. And we were, and I can't even remember, I guess we were sitting down, I guess we were getting ready to eat, and my grandmother was fixing the meal. But to be able to sit, because I always picture having the opportunity to sit with them and tell them what they did to me, stuff that I didn't know. I didn't start processing until the last few years. I didn't know the impact. You talked about, the intimacy with your husband and all the triggers. It could be the smell, the feel, the touch. To be able to say, I still made it. You had that, you took that from me, and you had all these years of my life where it impacted me in so many other ways. And then you add so many other things on top of that. Like, it looked good. It looked like I was normal, but I was a functional mess on the inside. So just hearing you say you had that opportunity to talk to him and you said your piece, like, I kind of lived vicariously through you for that moment, because I want that opportunity to now, the me that I am now, I don't know if I would get violent, because, God is still working on me. So I don't know if I would throw hands or if I would throw oil, but I'm sorry, this wasn't supposed to happen. But I thank you for sharing that. And so you were able to have that opportunity. It was liberating for you. Still hurtful, still hard, I'm sure. Did you go to therapy?
I didn't go for that because I felt like once I said what I needed to say to him, and the other thing I said to him was, you had 35 years of my life and I want it back.
Jesus.
So for me, that was it. It was like, I didn't feel like God required anything because I had already forgiven him.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, okay, now I can start to develop healthy relationships. Because before, any relationship would do.
Mm-hmm.
You talk to me crazy. Oh, you're paying attention to me. Okay, it doesn't matter. I'm spending all my money. Oh, yeah, that's the type of relationship we have. So if you're paying attention to me, that's because that's all people really want. They just want to be seen.
Yes.
People just want to be seen. And when they start doing things that are contrary to their character or the way God has created them, it's because they're still trying to be seen.
Yes.
And a lot of times, bad behavior gets noticed and rewarded more than being an A student. Oh, yeah. You're trying to be, Miss Goody Two Shoes. So now I got to be out here being crazy just for somebody to pay attention to me. So when I said that to him, like I said, I felt like the elephant was gone, and I just started to see stuff differently.
Yes.
It was kind of like I remember going into a grocery store, and this is the same grocery store I had shopped at years, and I saw all these apples. These are the same apples that was there all that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I just went to the Red Delicious apple, forget the Granny Smith, forget the Honeycrisp, forget all these other things. All I saw was one apple because I was only looking from the space of my trauma. Well, if he thought I was only good for sex,
yes,
then that's what everybody else. So then I pretty much prided my life on, well, this is how I'm going to loop the dude in. I'm going to have sex with him, and then I'll get whatever I can get out of him, not understanding the deposits.
Yes.
That they were leaving with me because they were dropping their trauma off too.
Yeah, of course. So tired.
So it was very liberating in that sense, and I attribute leaving New York City in 1990 to that. Because I was like, I have to get away. There's no way, and I didn't know about healing or anything, but I was like, either I'm gonna kill somebody or somebody's gonna kill me, because somebody's gonna say something to me the wrong way, and it's just, and I'm not even type person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I will talk you into being my friend, and you probably wanted to kill me 10 minutes ago, because I'm the type of person to where I just want to have a conversation. I just want people to get along. But interestingly enough, I had that conversation with him. 4 years later, I go back and I get to see him.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What was that like? Well, I mean, what was the event?
It was like a birthday celebration.
Oh, okay.
So he was in a particular space, and I had my back turned, and I was washing dishes, and I heard the door open, and I knew it was him. Like, he didn't say anything, nobody announced him, but I just knew it was him. So I just continued to watch, and mind you, I hadn't seen this person in like 30 years. So, what have you? I don't think. I'm pretty sure I was the last person he was expecting to see. So I'm washing the dishes, I'm minding my business, I turn around, and someone that was close to us was like, oh, this is, they called me Nene because my mom's name is Nadine, was Nadine. But yeah, so they was like, oh yeah, Nene's here. And then he just stopped, and he just looked. And it was like, I don't really have a prison to put you in because you've been in prison all this time. Because
you think so? I always wonder about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no way in the world that somebody can violate you and they not feel the violation. They may be molesting you, but their mind is being molested. Jesus. Because they're thinking about it. And what happens, the more they think about it, now that you're out of the picture, they go find somebody else. So they have this predatory mindset to say, okay, well, I found a light-skinned girl, let me go find a dark-skinned girl. I found a 12-year-old, let me go find a 9-year-old. I found a Puerto Rican, let me go find a Haitian. I mean, it just never stops. Yeah. So that was one of my abusers. There was another abuser. Both of those people are no longer alive. Wow. So God was gracious enough to allow me to heal before they died. Amen. And amen again. And amen again.
I love it. So, can we go back to when he walked in the kitchen? You were washing the dishes. He comes in, and he knew who you were.
Well, when they said it was me, then he knew who I was. Yeah.
What was your reaction? What did you have the anxiety? Did you feel the butterflies or the?
I was on some Mike Tyson. I wish you would say because I was free.
You were free. Freedom.
So it was like I didn't have to vindicate myself. I didn't have to say to you, because you seeing me still standing here, that was my reward.
Wow. So chill. So at that time, did you realize how truly free you were? Or was that like the final confirmation when you didn't have that reaction, when you were able to face him? Is that?
Yeah, but I think it happened with the phone call.
It happened with the phone call.
I think the phone call was like the precursor, because the recurring dreams and, God just helping me get through that, because I knew I was going to see him again. I knew it. So I felt like I was like, I'm letting you have this conversation. So when you see him, you won't have all of that connected to when you see him. And he got really, really sick, and he died a painful death. Wow. And I want to be very conscious when I say this. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, this is what you get, you reap what you sow. No, but what I'm saying is, your sin will find you out.
Absolutely. And
whatever you don't confront, it will conquer you. Because whatever's on the inside that doesn't come out, whether it comes out through surgery or whether it comes out through your pores, if it's alcohol, if it stays in you, it's going to kill you.
Yes.
It's going to kill you mentally, emotionally, financially. Yeah, you can have money, but you have no peace.
No peace. And I just said that. It can come back. It can haunt you in different ways. And from the outside looking in, somebody might think, oh, this person has it made. Oh, but how are they sleeping? You're looking at the material things, but how are they sleeping? Are they sleeping?
They're not. And
all I can think of is, until you do right by me. I mean, and I've been replaying that over and over and over lately. Do you know what that's from, Yvonne?
Color Purple.
The Color Purple. Yeah, we're gonna have to turn you on to a few things. Yeah,
and Kirk Franklin.
And Kirk Franklin.
In that order.
In that order. But there's a part in I can't do it any justice, but there's a part in The Color Purple where Miss Celie finds her strength. She reclaimed her power, chose her, and she turned to her abuser, her violator, her manipulator, and said, until you do, I can't get it right, until you do right by me, everything you do will fail, or something to that effect. I'm not even gonna try to quote it, but it's been playing over and over and over, and I'm thinking about my violators, and you know, and here I am going through all the emotions. I'm laughing, I'm crying, right. But you know, it is what it is. But so give me some examples of how you've chosen you.
So for me, I just started to find out what I really liked. Mm-hmm. Because if I connected to when I was married, I found out that the majority of things I did, it was things that my husband liked. Like I had a closet full of blue stuff, and blue's not my favorite color. Yellow is. Blue is his favorite color.
Wow. So
I chose me by saying, I don't care if other people don't like it. I chose me by saying, hey, maybe polka dots do look okay with stripes. And even if they don't, it's my business. I'm gonna wear it. I like it. So for me, it wasn't like a big thing. It was just basically saying, hey, leave the cup in the sink. It'll be there tomorrow when you come. Because trauma also trained me in a space of perfectionism. So now I had to make everything look a certain kind of way. If you came over to my house had to be clean. If you see me, I could not have worn the same clothes twice, or it was torture. And for me to choose me was just me saying, you're mad at other people for not understanding your worth, but you don't even know yourself. So then I basically went on like this whole like detective space of, who's Bertina?
And who is Bertina? That was going to be my next question. Because you mentioned, earlier on, you didn't know who you were. So who are you? So I am a beautiful, intelligent, magnificent, look at God, courageous overcomer. That's what. Yes, you are. I'm not my trauma. Yes, I'm somebody's mom, but I'm still courageous. Yes, I'm somebody's daughter, but I'm still resilient. And I think what happened was I kept finding my identity in things that I did or things that happened to me. Mm-hmm. So I saw myself literally in a jumpsuit. So it was a white jumpsuit, and it had like black stripes on it, kind of like in the old chain gangs when people were locked up, and they would have those type of jumpers or whatever they were called, uniforms while they were in prison. Mm-hmm. And so I had this thing on, but it was on tape. So it was a white jumper, and it had all these black pieces of tape, and it said shame, and it said guilt, and it said abandonment and rejection. And I literally saw myself tearing all of them off until it was nothing but a white jumper. Powerful. So now nobody can really tell me that I can't do anything. If I don't do it, that means God didn't want me to do it. That's the only reason why it doesn't get done. That part. That's it. Wow. Because I spent too much time trying to prove to people I wasn't their ex-wife. I spent too much time trying to prove to people that I could have been. I was the best mom I could be at 16. At 16. I was the best mom I could be at 22. I was the best mom I could be at 24. So even in that, choosing me was going back to people who may have viewed me at another time and just taking all their stuff, like, well, you didn't do this or you didn't do that, all the accusations. Choosing me was, you're not going to talk to me like that. And if you don't know how to talk to me, go somewhere and find out. And when you figure it out, then you can come back and talk to me. So the problem came when I started standing up for myself. So then everyone thought you were different. Yeah, you were acting funny. You changed. Okay, you smelling yourself like the old people say. And I was like, so I had a person that was like, oh, you changed. And I was like, well, yeah, isn't that what's supposed to happen? Yeah. Like, would you want
me to come out here with the same clothes I had on when I was 8 years old, they probably wouldn't fit. They would look real stupid on me. And you would go back to me being 8 years old. So why wouldn't you want to change? I'm like, you change your hair, you change your oil in your car, you change your tires. Everything's changing. Why would it not change? So for me now, it's like I'm not doing things around everybody else's life.
Yes.
Before I used to, oh, you want to go to the movies? I would pay for the movies. I would pick out the movie. I would get the times. I would buy the popcorn. I'm like, good night. I should have just started in the movie because I've done
people
everything.
Pleaser?
Word? Yeah, I was the president of that club. Yeah, I was the CEO because I grew up where the adults in my life told me if you do everything right, nothing will go wrong. Which is a lie.
Yes.
Because Jesus did everything right and look what happened to him. He died this horrible death so we could live this beautiful life. So for me, the turning point for me was, what are you going to do with your freedom? Wow. Because God, you saved my life from the molesters. You saved my life from toxic relationships. I got hit by a car. I had a bullet go over my head.
No.
If I was a little bit taller, the bullet would have had to go through my head before it hit the person whose head it hit. So when I sit back and I think, I'm like, so we not going to let nobody tell you you can't do anything, because every day that I wake up, God has given me an opportunity to do what he's called me to do. And if he didn't let the bullets kill me, and he didn't let the molesters kill me, he didn't let evictions kill me, he didn't let me being on welfare kill me. Like, what are you going to do with your freedom?
That's right.
It's the least you can do. If somebody pulled you out of a burning building, are you going to go back in there and just start flicking matches around? So now that I'm out here, I'm like, this is the version of me you're going to get. I'm not out here trying to make everybody like me. I know I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Probably want to drink coffee. I'm okay with that. Whereas before, if I was around an older person, then I had to acquiesce to the older people. If I was in a place where I felt like I wasn't smart enough, now I got to find words in the dictionary. So when I have a conversation with you, and I'm like, you're a counterfeit.
Yeah. It's hard.
It's very, very taxing and it's exhausting.
Yeah. And then you end up feeling depleted.
Yeah.
And then burnout because you're so busy trying to please everyone else, and then you get neglected in the process. But look at you now. Look at you now. Yeah. What would you tell? I was going to say, what would you tell your 16-year-old self? But what would you tell your 16-year-old self, or what would you tell a 16-year-old that went through or is going through something similar? Something that you went through when you were 16? Like, how can we encourage someone else that's in that same position?
First, I would say your situation is not your identification.
Yes.
Because a lot of times I feel like we build our worth on what's happening to us at that time. So a lot of us don't even get to what God wants to do in our lives because we're stuck in, I'm a teenage mom. We're stuck in, I work at Target. We're stuck in, I don't want to be at this job. We're stuck in what we're stuck in. So we really don't see anything else. And it's like, your situation is not your identification. Jesus didn't die for you to get a perm. Jesus didn't die for you to, wear makeup. That's not why he died. Like, he wants to do other things in your life, but you're going to have to agree with that. So when I started understanding that I was molested, but I'm not being molested anymore.
And it wasn't your fault.
And it wasn't my fault. And it wasn't even my job to go back and even point it out to all the people. It was just with that particular person, I had the opportunity. But because that person was so frequent in the molestation, I feel like that was like the biggest part of me not moving forward. So yeah, I would say whatever you're going through right now, you're going through it. That's it. It's like you're always on your way to somewhere else. The only way you won't get where you need to go is if you stop
through it.
Yeah.
You're going through it just hit me. It just clicked. You're going through it, but you're going through it.
Exactly.
I love that.
Exactly.
I love that. So there's promise at the end. There's a rainbow at the end of all of that. And I don't know if you felt like some of the things you went through you deserved. Did it limit you because you felt like
That'll be a whole nother podcast.
Yeah. I know. I just thought about
to answer your question, yes.
Okay, yes. But you're free from all that and doing some amazing, amazing, amazing things. I had the pleasure of visiting your home, and it was like something out of a magazine. It was, not only was it spotless, it was the most organized place I've ever seen. It was styled perfectly, but the organization was immaculate. Like, I didn't want to touch anything. I didn't want to leave fingerprints. It was just so beautiful, and you're so chic and so talented and so creative. And she has, I think, if I learned from your last event, if I remember it correctly, you have 52 hats.
Yes, I have 52 hats, literally. So when people say I wear a lot of hats, that's me. I wear a lot of hats.
She's so chic with it. I mean, her style is amazing. But can you tell us really quickly about your whole because you're an interior decorator?
Yes.
Go ahead and tell us
So
about
just
that.
a little bit about that. My company is called the Arrange Her. So this is what I help people do: arrange cluttered spaces. Also do organization, and I do interior design. So that's my name on IG and on Facebook, the Arrange Her.
Yes, I love it. I mean, if you see some of her work, it's amazing. Again, it's like out of a magazine. It is, and I think you should have a magazine coming out soon, because she has some beautiful work and she has some beautiful pictures. So hopefully you can put it together, and we can see your work, because you can give people so many great ideas, especially organization alone, like her closet. Can you talk about your real quick? Everything was I've never seen anything like that. It was so structured, and
yeah. So it's color coded, but it's also by, like, my tank tops are a different way, in a different space, and then my sweaters are in a different space, and it doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but when you're trying to go out and you just want a black sweater, you should be able to go to the section where your black sweaters are, as opposed to you looking through your whole closet. So my closet is literally like my life. When my life is not organized and it's out of control, I eat things I don't supposed to eat. When my life is out of control, I go places I don't need to go. When my life is out of control, I pick people that I don't need to pick. So for me, if I'm already organized, then I can go to this spot and I understand that I have the choice to pick from this. And if I decide not to choose that, it's okay.
Nice. That's awesome. What she said. Because I want to be like her when I grow up, and I want to show you my closet, but no, no, absolutely not.
Are all your friends more organized than you?
Yes, because we had Janelle on the last episode, and she's organized as far as lists are concerned. She I always laughed at her because she's so thorough when it comes to stuff. Like, even though and I said it before, it's not like she doesn't have stress, but it's organized chaos. If there is chaos, I don't think she's associated with chaos at all, because she's so organized as far as her lists are concerned. Your things, your place, I mean, amazing. And you mentioned how we can find you?
Yes, on IG. Yes, the Arrange Her.
The Arrange Her. And one more thing, what if you can name one thing that you are most, I'm sure you have a ton, but one thing that you're most grateful for?
My life. Because you can get another car, but you can't get another life.
Jesus. So profound. So profound. Today, I would say that I am grateful for this episode. Just having you on, and I didn't know where this was going to go, and
thanks to us.
But thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate you. I'm grateful for you and your strength and where you are. The freedom that you're living in and walking in. I applaud you for that, and God bless you for that. And I'm so honored not only to have you on this episode, but to have met you, and to be able to call you friend and talk to you, and I'm thankful. So thank you again for everything.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm gonna I'm gonna end by saying this. Being really petty right now, we're probably gonna need to edit this one too. But to all my violators, until you do right by me, everything you do is gonna fail. I'm telling you. Yeah, we'll probably have to cut that part, but thank you so much for joining me today on my Reclaiming My Power, I Choose Me podcast. It was a pleasure having you. Choose you. I always end by saying that whatever your circumstances are, whatever you're fighting through, and like Bertina said today, if you're going through it, you're going through it. So don't stay there. Fight for it. Reclaim your power and choose you. Thank you for joining. See you next time.
This is Reclaiming My Power, I Choose Me.